So the title is quite long, to be honest, from developer to consultant, balancing innovation and reliability, but I will just break it down for you guys. So here at Antematter, I've been working for about 1 year and a few more months. So what I have noticed is that there are some people who are developers, and there are some people who are consultants, and there are also some people who would like to uh, transition from being a developer to the consultant. So, keeping that in view, and the fact that another thing that I noticed was that there are uh, again people who are confused sometimes about what to do about the innovation part and the reliability part for their teams, for their projects, and for the clients. So by that, what I mean is, let's say you are part of a tech team, either as a project manager, talent manager, developer, or delivery manager, any sort of person related to project, right? And you have that project. Now, from the point of uh, gathering information about what resources to give to the client, to the point to the end of the delivery. So there's a whole journey in between. And in that journey, at every single point, every single person is making a decision about whether to apply something innovative here or whether to apply something reliable here. And that journey is quite confusing, to be honest, for most of the people, because we as humans, we have certain biases, and we also sometimes do not see what the clients actually want. So the workshop is about the fact that, first of all, we need to move from the developer mindset to the consultant mindset. And this, by the way, applies to every single person who is related to the project one way or another, in management or as a developer. And second part is balancing innovation and reliability. So this will be covered in this complete workshop. So let's start with an example. So, and this is a question for you guys, and one from you can answer. So let's say you were going to apply at Antimatter, and all that is mentioned on the job post is the job that you are applying to. Let's say project management, for example. You are applying for a project management job at Antimatter, and that is everything mentioned in the job post. So now, can anyone tell me how would you assess the possible questions or the scenarios that antimatter might ask you during the interview? How would that interview go? How can you assess that? Can anyone answer that? Okay, so no one, I guess, no problem. Uh, I will just start. So let's say if there was a person clever enough, what they would do is, ideally, they would first go to the antimatter website and they would see what actually antimatter does. So let's say they work in AI or Web3, for example. Second, that person will move to LinkedIn, maybe, and they would see their posts, what kind of posts they do, right? Third, they might see the people working there, what kind of people are working there. So if you assess the people working there, and you can also put up filters in LinkedIn, right? You can put up filters for project managers working in Antimatter, let's say, or tech leads working at Antimatter, right? So if you put up those filters, what you will come to know is there are certain data points there. So data points might be, okay, they work in Web3 and AI. They are quite tech focused and they have that startup energy, but they are not startup exactly. And they are in that uh, phase where they are not a startup, but they are quite stable enough also. So what are some other companies that are out there in this very same scenario? What would they ask? So if you keep on going this journey, you would come up with the questions that that company would possibly ask you. Obviously, this is a probability, not the surety, but again, this is quite good enough data points. So how did you made that journey? Because you did not learn that anywhere. It was not part of your university course, or it was not part of, let's say, your experience. So how did you learn the fact that how to make this journey? So And again, I will give you another personal example. Recently, there was a project to be onboarded on Antimatter, and the client wanted to interview me because I would be working on that project. And I honestly did not know anything about that project. All I know was that is a sort of a Web3 gaming project, and that's about it. And the name of the client. That's about it. That's all I know. And I did not even know what the project was about, other than the fact that it is a Web3 gaming project. And so I was to prepare for an interview. I'm a Web3 lead here at Antematter, so obviously there was a pressure on me to impress the client, and the client possibly ask anything. It can be from blockchain, backend, management, whatever. It can be anything. So then again, I started to apply my own journey here. What I did was I went to the website of that again company. I saw what they do. I went to the LinkedIn profile of the client. I saw what he did, and then I looked into what the Web3 gaming companies are looking for these days. What are the technologies used by the Web3 companies these days? So all those things, they gave me some data points. So this is the first part of the equation of this workshop is the correct requirement gathering, correct information gathering, knowing your client, knowing your project. So this is the very first part of the workshop, the very first problem. So as you can see, the first bullet point itself is the fact that information gathering, separation of innovation from reliable info. So as per my example, I will explain how I separated innovation from reliable info. So innovation was the fact that recently there was a new project, a new service, let's say a bridge sort of thing for Web3 gaming projects, right? It was pretty new. And when I looked at the client profile, the client was a person who would prefer reliable uh, products or services. How did I know that? I knew that from the fact that I looked at the post that that client did, the kind of things he wrote, right? So I made like a image in my mind what the client wanted. So he certainly did not want innovation. He wanted reliable information, reliable services. So as I was preparing for that interview, what I did was I only searched was for the reliable solutions. So, for example, a reliable solution will be making that Web3 gaming product on a very stable blockchain, not a new one, not a fancy one, not a scam or anything, just a very stable one, because that is what the client would have wanted. And again, the second step is knowing the right requirements. Now, again, this again refers to the very first part of the problem. If you want to balance innovation and reliability, how can you do that if you do not even know the right requirements? So normally what people would say is, I would simply take the requirements from client. Yes, obviously that is one way. And but the problem with that is clients themselves do not know what the right requirements are. So you have to assess it or you have to make them say it, basically. You have to come up with certain questions or solutions that they say it, what is the right requirements. And again, since I'm discussing all this, I would also mention another fact is there are some upcoming mock interview sessions for engineers where they will learn how to deal with clients and everything. This workshop will basically help you with that also. So again, coming to the third bullet point, which is choosing a bunch of right information about the probably right requirements. Okay, so again, coming to my own example, as I gave you guys, is I had a bunch of information, right? We can do this or that, XY solution, ABC solution, whatever for that Web3 gaming project. But right now, I wanted to reduce that information. I have, let's say, 10 vague information. Now I wanted to reduce that. I wanted to reduce that to, let's say, two or three very solid points. So this is the point, the third bullet point here is choosing the bunch of right information about from the probably right requirements. And the final is just apply them. So this was just an example or how we will be going about this scenario. And in further slides, I will explain how this is done. Okay, so when we talk about being a developer from moving from a developer to a consultant perspective, uh, whether you are a developer or a project manager or whatever, consultancy is like a general term. And if you are separating innovation from reliability, you have to understand the client. Now, there are certain biases that we have as a engineers. Let's say, for example, if I'm working in blockchain and if I'm pretty sure that the thing that client is wanting is on blockchain, but it can be better done using maybe a very simple database, right? Very simple database can do it. And client is just adamant on the fact that they want this on blockchain. So as a consultant, it is my responsibility to explain this to that client that, hey, okay, I am a blockchain guy and I love blockchain, right? I like to work on it. But no, sir, uh, this is better than on database, right? So there are certain biases that we have. So we have to think with logic, not with our emotions or biases. We have to remove those. So the thing is that technology that you want might not be the best technology that might work for the client. And even the technology that client wants might not be the best that works for the client. So either you have to prove this to the client or the client has to prove this to you that the technology that they are demanding is the one to go with. And again, as I said, this will all help you with the upcoming mock sales interviews. So the second point is ask for their non-negotiables. So every client has some non-negotiables. For example, what I mean by that is, let's say a client was focusing on the fact that they want uh, blockchain grants from a certain company. Let's say Binance is a very famous company, right? So let's say they want a project where they want to secure grants from that Binance company. So this is a non-negotiable for that. I might suggest the fact that, hey, Ethereum is good for you, but why you are going with Binance? And they would say that this is a non-negotiable for me. I want to just select it. I want to secure that grant. Okay, that completely makes sense. Now, the innovation part here is I would have recommended a very new fancy blockchain, let's say a zero knowledge blockchain, right? That is pretty new in the market. But the client here wants reliability, which is Binance. Binance is quite reliable compared to the very new zero knowledge blockchain, which is in the testing phase, right? So these are certain negotiable things that you have to ask that client. They might not even mention this, by the way. They might not even mention the fact that they want to go with Binance. They would just be saying that we want to do this on Binance. They won't even be mentioning the reason. So you have to take that information out from them. And this is obviously beneficial for the client, but this is more beneficial for you. You will assess the information the right way. Now, the third point is ask the top three most important goals of their product. Okay, so obviously, as I said, this whole workshop is applicable to your tech career, obviously, but this is also applicable to your general life also. Even in life, if you ask someone about the top three goals for certain things, they would even mention that. Let's say you go to a car showroom and you want to buy a car, and there are certain different cars available. Now, if the salesperson is clever enough, that person would definitely ask you, what are the top three most important goals that you want to see in your car? And you will mention those, and then that person will recommend you the best suited car for you. So, as I said, this whole workshop is not just for the tech part, it is also applicable in your life, just by little modification. Okay. So, and again, the fourth point is ask for the thing they can compromise on. So let's say you are someone working in DevOps and you have to deploy certain servers, let's say, and your server, let's say, has a 98% uptime and 2% downtime. Okay. So you know for a fact that according to the budget and the requirement of the client, this 2% downtime won't affect the client and it won't affect the product. You know that. But does the client know that? Does the client fine with this? So you have to ask that also. For the things they can compromise on, you have to tell them the fact that, hey, there will be a 2% downtime. Are you okay with this? And they would say, okay, no problem. We can compromise it and don't issue with that. So there are certain things that they can compromise on, definitely. The client will compromise on certain things, but you have to figure out what those things are. Because as you work on the project, whether as a project manager, delivery manager, or as a developer, you have to utilize those things that they can compromise on. Why? Because you will be balancing the things that the things that are not negotiable for them and the things that are negotiable for them. You have to balance the things between those. So yes, these all three things are important, whether you like it or not, and they might be conflicting at times, but you have to figure that out. Okay, the second last point is why they chose this business direction. Now, this is very important. Sometimes what happens is, I will give you, let's say, an AI example. Let's say there was a client and they want to make this fancy AI and they are calling it very revolutionary, right? But you know for a fact that this exact AI has existed before and that is open source and they do not have to build it again from the scratch, right? But client has their own reasoning. They are adamant of the fact that they want to do it. Okay, you accept it because obviously they are the client. You have to work on it. You accept it. Now, as a consultant, uh, it is your responsibility to understand the fact that why they are choosing this business direction. So this is a very important question, by the way, why they are choosing this business direction. And another interesting thing is this will the answer to this will be completely different from the fact from the above all bullet points. So these bullet points, the answer to these will not match with this one. So this will confuse you a lot. So why they chose this business direction. So yeah, you have to ask that and you have to make that assessment. Now the final point is explicit is always better than implicit. So what I mean is, let's say you are saying certain things to be polite and you are saying certain things uh, that you might think that a client might not even give you the business. But the thing is, being explicit is far better than being implicit because what will happen is further down the line it will cause you issues. Now, obviously, these all points were client focused, but you might be thinking that how are we uh, doing the difference between this innovation and reliability thing? So that is covered further in the slides. Okay, so things to look out for. So let's say you are a consultant now. You consider yourself a consultant, whether as a project manager or a delivery manager or even talent manager or acquiring talent, right? So let's say we have a very active uh, people at Antematter who look out for great talent for projects to work on, right? They go and see in the market. So even they, one way or another, apply all these points for their projects. So let me just give you an example. So let's say you had a project which is a simple um, product selling website. It can be anything. Let's say you are selling curtains, right? So there are certain product requirements and objectives. Obviously, you will go through that. That is just a checklist, and you have to see the scalability of it. So what I mean by that is, let's say you are considering a certain technology product. Let's say Shopify, right? Shopify is very famous for making stores online, easy to plug and play sort of thing, right? And you have to select that. And on the other part, you have a technology which is quite new, by the way, and it is very fancy and it is very cheap and very developer friendly and whatnot. The best thing out there, right? So you have to now consider whether to choose that new fancy thing or go with the Shopify, right? You have to choose that. So how would you go about that? What you will do is simply you will see the project requirements and the objectives. You see if scalability is important for them or not. You will see the security and data privacy issues, the user experience they want. Let's say the new fancy thing does not have a very good user experience, but Shopify certainly do have a very good user experience, right? So this is a analysis that you have to do. Now, every single thing that we do, whether choosing a resource, a person for a project, or whether choosing a technology for a project, or whether even choosing the report format for a project, you will be going through all these things, sort of all these points, one way or another. So at the end of the day, if you see the very last point, which is compare all selected solutions with SWOT. Now, personally, as a student, when I was first taught about SWOT analysis in my marketing management class or entrepreneurship class, etc., I thought that it is quite useless. But in life, actually, it is quite useful, and I do use it very often, by the way. So do look into SWOT analysis, and it is quite helpful, to be honest. Even right now, if we give project requirements or the first proposals to the client, we do this SWOT analysis on the solutions that we give to the clients. And by the way, this is not just applicable on clients. You can apply all these points on your real life also. Let's say, again, coming back to the showroom example. Let's say you were choosing a car, again, you would do the SWOT analysis. So what the SWOT analysis does is it helps you differentiate your emotions from the logic. Because at the end of the day, all these decisions should be based on logic, not on emotions. So this will sort of help you with taking out the emotions part of it. Now, I designed this workshop in a way that it does not give you the um, formal definition and formal terms. I have tried to avoid all that, but SWOT was a thing I had to just put it right there. It is a marketing management thing, but yeah, we have to do this. Again, so talking about technologies, if you see this graph, what do you see? Um, we have a front-end developer here in the workshop, whether they can answer, if anyone can answer, please go ahead. What do they understand from this graph? Hamza, Nasir, Zuhair, anyone?
एक सेकंड मुझे गौर से देखने दो. The only thing I see from this graph is TypeScript is king and Python sucks.
Yeah, exactly. So another thing that you can see in this graph is that the mature technologies, which were C++, C Sharp, PHP also, it was mature by the way. So, right? Their search and their popularity is reducing compared to TypeScript. Now, I'm not saying that TypeScript is bad. I'm just saying that we as a developer have this certain sort of bias that we just need to grab the next best thing, right? We just need to grab that. We just need to work on it. And this is quite evident in this graph that Stack also has provided that the developer traffic has certainly increased on TypeScript and Node.js. Now, here is another interesting graph. Let's say you were making a shopping website for a client, and it is the year 2017, the very latest year in this graph, 2017. And as you can see, Vue.js is the very top, right? And other things are going down. So again, any front-end developer, whether they would like to say anything about this, what do they think this graph is telling?
Open source.
Yeah, that is one thing. Anything else interesting here?
Huge community.
Okay, I'll just rephrase my question. Let's say you are in 2017 and now you have to select a framework and you have this graph as a reference for selecting a framework for your client and they are making some shopping website. So what you would choose?
Vue.
Vue. Okay. Why Vue?
It's better than React.
It's new and shiny.
Yes.
Yeah, but you are in 2017. Do remember this fact? You aren't in 2017.
Yep. Because we can see like it's trending.
Yeah. So that is the exact same problem that we have. You guys are still choosing innovation over reliability. You have to assess it. Vue is pretty new, right? And obviously it is skyrocketing, and I can see that in the graph. But if you see there, it just had a cross with other uh, frameworks in 2016 only, right? 2017 is the new year where Vue was king, right? So it was just 1 year. You have to still assess the fact that how to differentiate between innovation and reliability. There might be certain frameworks that are quite reliable. They might have very great support and they would easily support the project of the client in the next 10 years. But let's say Vue was not supported by anyone, it was just simply open source. So there was a very great chance it would just go down the drain in 1 or 2 years or whatever. So this is a risk. So you have to assess whether client was okay with this or not. As a consultant, you have to differentiate here between the fact whether to go with innovation or reliability. Now here is another interesting graph. And again, I would ask you guys the question, what do you see here? If anyone would like to answer. Okay, no problem. I will just go ahead. Okay, if you see the applied AI part, which is second from the left side, right? So this graph is for 2001, 2021, 2022, and 2023. And if you see there, we all know that AI has a boom, but why this graph is going downwards, right? So this graph is going downwards about AI. So the AI jobs are reducing, but we all know that AI has a boom right now. And again, if you see about climate technologies, the very next graph, the gray one, it has a minus 11% at job posting. But we do know the fact that climate change and the climate focused industry is increasing in the world right now, but there is a job drop. Now, just keep these facts in your mind. I will just attach it with the next graph. Now here, if you see the technologies that are used in case of adoption. Now it is a quite interesting graph. Would anyone like to go ahead and comment on it?
तो
Okay.
एआई की पोस्ट से गिरने के बजाय
Yeah.
उसकी एडॉप्शन स्टिल इंक्रीज कर रही है, राइट?
No, this is not particularly related to AI. This, as you can see, this is generic technology graph. So yeah. Okay. So the thing is, what this graph is telling is that even though the innovation was happening, even though AI was having a boom, blockchain was having a boom back then, there were very new frameworks are coming. Even with that, those facts, the adoption is the highest, where the product is fully scaled. And on the second part, it is scaling, and on the third, it is piloting. Now, if you see the frontier innovation and experimenting, those are at the bottom tier. They have the lowest adoption. Why do they have the lowest adoption? The thing is, the place that I have taken this graph from, it is McKinsey, by the way. It is written in the bottom left corner. Now, this graph was telling the fact that the investors, that the people who run the industry, they want their products on, let's say, products that on the services or the frameworks that are piloting, that are scaling, and that are fully scaled. Not on the frontier technology, not on experimenting. So this is what the graph was telling. Now, if you compare it with the previous graph, that was about developers, right? You see the opposite mindset. So the people that are running the industry, the people that invest the money, they want something which is somewhere in between innovation and reliability. But the developers, we as a developer community, we want the next best thing, the next fancy thing, the next 10x Pro Max, whatever that is. We want that, and we would just want to use it, which is a good thing. No problem with that. But the thing is, the people that you will work for, the people that you will recommend things to, they do not want this. They just want something that is in between. So again, coming to my original point, you have to balance the fact that innovation and reliability do not go hand in hand. You have to just find a certain balance between those things. And again, this is again the graph which is confirming what we learned in the previous graph. If you see that the experimenting part of it, the chunk that is experimenting, it is smaller than other chunks. It is competitive, yes, but it is still smaller compared to other chunks, right? So yes, innovation is important. Using that is important. Even learning that is important. Knowing about the next best thing is important. But at the same time, as a consultant, you cannot have this bias of just going with the next best thing. As a developer, sure, go ahead, have fun, no problem. But as a consultant, sorry, you cannot. Okay, now comes with the fact that coming to the very first example that I gave, that I was to prepare for an interview, and all I know was it was a Web3 gaming company, and the client was a very nerd sort of guy. That's everything that I know, right? So how to get that reliable information? Now this is very important. Although I have written GitHub, Daily Dev, Substack, Dev2, Hashnote, Hackathon, whatever, I've written those, but these are not the solution. products to get the reliable information. What I'm trying to say on this slide is you have to get the reliable information through number one, trends. If you see, GitHub show you trends, Google Trends show you certain trends, and Stack also again show you certain trends. Then you have to see the developer activity. Now the funny thing is the workshop, the meetups, and the conferences. These are not most innovation focused. These are mostly focused in a way that they are for the products that are to be reliable, that will have, if they do not already have, they will have a great community support. So in short, they give you active community part where you can just check mark it, right? So you have that active community check mark. Okay, I'm going that I'm having this reliable information. I can have this active community check mark. Okay, good enough. Now the fifth point is very important: support from an established company. Now, there are people who like Arch Linux or Kali Linux or whatever, right? They like it. They like Linux Mint also, Ubuntu, Mac, Windows, right? We all have our own preferences. But how do we choose that for certain thing, right? So you have to see the fact that there is a support from an established company, even if the product itself is open source, right? So let's say personally, I use Proton Pass for my passwords, right? I personally use that. So Proton sort of have made it open source. People can contribute to it, look to it, audit it, right? Great product. But at the same time, I know for a fact that if I put my passwords in this service, Proton Pass, it would just not go down because Proton is behind it, even though it is open source and very reliable. But Proton is behind it. If you see React.js, right? The growth that React has seen due to Meta being behind it. And if you compare it with Google, let's say Google products, what will Google do? Although Google is a established company, is it just throws their products away. It does not back them like a normal company would do. So I think Google is like an edge case here, where I would not consider Google products as a support from an established company because Google more or less every few years just dump their some products. So Google is an edge case here. Other than that, I did not find anything to worry about. So yeah, you have to get that reliable information in your own way. For example, I recommend daily dev, right? I have tuned it my way, just like it's Instagram or TikTok, people see what they want to see, right? Similarly, daily dev will also show you that. You can just put up some filters and everything, and same for dev.to and hash node or whatever. So you have to get that reliable information from reliable people, and you have to see the trends. Plus, the most important part, active community. Community is very important. You do not have to participate in the community or go on the meetups and the workshops. You just have to see that if things are happening. For example, Ethereum. Ethereum has conferences every now and then. There is a Ethereum video every now and then. There is tutorial from official Ethereum channel where some their developer is giving you the tutorial, whatever. So I do know for a fact that anything that Ethereum is doing, it is quite reliable because there is an active community working there. Now, let's say you are doing a sample tech project, right? So that would most probably have a front end, a back end, some databases, and mobile app development, which is optional, by the way, and cloud providers and testing and monitoring, right? This is a sample tech project. Now, from the all this workshop, what you have learned is you can simply apply it here, right? So these are some high-level bullet points that more or less every tech project goes through. You can just treat it like a checklist. Now, again, as I said, this workshop does not have any standards. By standards, I mean these anything that I have mentioned here is not industry standard because said honestly speaking, there is no industry standard about his ISO standard or whatever how to do these things because these are quite subjective. But I personally use these checklists to just assess what I would do about a certain project. How would I consult? How would I differentiate between reliability and innovation? Now let's compare it with the cooking project. As I said, this workshop is also applicable on your life. So that would involve ingredient preparation, cooking techniques, storage and preservation method, recipe development, kitchen equipment, and quality control and testing. Now, if you compare all this cooking project bullet points to this one, you would find many similarities. And I have compared this here. So yes, there is a structured process. Process is always better than going with the flow and your emotions, to be honest. and especially in consultancy part where you are acting as a consultant, you cannot afford going with your emotions because that is not how things are done. You have to make a structure there. Now, again, this is not industry standard. This is just what I follow. So there is input processing in a cooking project. Let's say you wanted an omelet, right? So there is input processing both in a tech project and a cooking project. There is core processing, right? And I have compared every single point here. Now, the thing is, everything is a structured process. You just have to make sure that you go through it. You can make your own structured process, whatever works for you. But my point being here is there is a structured process. As a developer, obviously you can go unstructured, no problem. But as a consultant, sorry, you cannot afford it. Now, things to reconsider. Now, as a developer, even as a developer, not even as a consultant, even as a developer, you have to just remove these things from your life. These are certain biases. They have very technical name. What I did was I removed those technical terms and then I rephrased them in terms which you can relate to. For example, I can know everything. This is the type of bias, by the way. It has a certain term you can look up. But we normally do listen this. I can know everything, right? So this is a certain bias or an overconfidence or whatever. You have to remove this. Okay. The next point is the next best thing is what I work in. So let's say if I am working in blockchain and my bias is for blockchain, and I would always say, okay, the next best thing is uh, that I work in, that is blockchain. Every blockchain can do everything. That is pretty wrong thing to say. That is the wrong way to do things. Even as an AI developer, if you know for a fact that the problem that client is wanting can be better solved through just a simple algorithm and not through a full-fledged AI or model training, then yes, you have to recommend that. The next best thing is not what you are working in. Okay. The third point is if it worked for me, it must work for you. And this again does not apply. So there are engineers that uh, come to me about certain solutions that, hey, we are facing us XYZ problem. Please do recommend something. I never recommend them the solution that I came up with when I was facing that exact problem. I first listened to this engineer what the engineer is saying because I first has to assess the circumstances of that engineer. What are the pros and cons? What are things happening? Only then I can recommend. Even as a consultant, you have to do this. You cannot just say that, hey, your project can have this XYZ AI because it worked very good for me. No, you cannot just say it. Okay, so another thing is people like to live in comfort zone. They avoid saying stuff that they would know they would have to leave comfort zone for. Let's say, for example, if I'm working in blockchain and I'm not diving into zero knowledge, right? Which is sort of like a part of Web3 realm or domain. But if a client comes in and I know for a fact that zero knowledge is the best possible solution for them, but I am saying that no, I can do this with simply blockchain. No zero knowledge needed because I'm comfortable with blockchain. So under the hood, I have this comfort zone mindset that, hey, since I'm doing everything in blockchain, I can just simply do it for them, even though I know for a fact that zero knowledge will be the best for them. So this is again a sort of bias or a comfort zone that I'm thinking about, and I have to remove it. This also happens in DevOps. This also happens in front end, and basically in any field, even in looking people to hire for. The HR persons even do it in their own way. So yeah, we all have those certain biases. We have to remove those. Okay, so we have always done it this way. So this is the fifth point. We have always done it this way. So by this I mean, let's say in project management, in one of the projects at Antematter, there were some issues, and the project manager had to change the things how they were done compared to what the previous project manager did. Right, the things had to change. Right, so they did it. Now they could have easily said, "We have always done it this way." Right, so we will continue to do this. No, sorry, you cannot say it. And this is a certain bias that you have, and you have to just remove it. Now the sixth point is that's not my job. Okay, this is a very fair point, by the way. This is not your job, right? So let's say you are working on AI and there is an API that you have to integrate that is written by some other developer. That is the responsibility of some other developer. I do agree with the fact that that was not your job. You are an AI developer. Making that API is not your job. I do agree with that. But again, as an AI developer, at least you have to know the fact that how to integrate that API, or if the API is updated, how can I see where the API is updated or what parameters are updated? I do not just bother the API developer again and again. So yeah, this is part of your job. You have to do this. So I do agree, API making was not your job, but at least you have to know about the job of others. Another example is when front-end developers ask me whether there is a new function in the smart contract or not. I always have to go pick the link of the function and give it to them, when in fact they can easily go and see the interface file of that contract, and it will be there whether there is a new function or not. So yeah, so contract making is not your job, but at least you should know that how to access the information given to you by the other developer. Okay. The fourth last point is it's good enough to ship. Okay. Now the thing is, we as a developer rarely say this, it's good enough to ship. We mostly say this, it is not good enough to ship. But honestly, there are developers who say it's good enough to ship. They are just walking on very dangerous waters, to be honest. Because what will happen? Let's say if I was making a payment solution for our product, and I say it's good enough to ship, even with the fact that I know that I have not tested it enough, and I say it's good enough to ship because it is working in my local environment, or it is working on my dev environment on the server because I have tested it to X amount of time. Sorry, I cannot just say it, right? This is again my bias. I consider my product to be very good quality. I consider that it will just work. No, it won't. It is not good enough to ship, and it is also not bad enough to ship. Also, I cannot say it is bad enough to ship. This is not up to me to decide it is good or bad enough. There are certain parameters, there are certain criteria that I have to go through. There are rational, logical ways to do things. There are test cases, right? There are things that QA, quality insurance does, right? They do not go with the emotions. So again, these are certain biases that you have to remove, and the list goes on. We do not need to document this. You just certainly have to document this. Testing is a waste of time. Well, you will find out soon enough whether it is a waste of time or not. Okay, users are stupid if they can't figure it out. Now, funny thing is, I once heard a user experience person say this: users are stupid enough if they can't figure it out. So this was a bias that that person had. So that person should not even be in the user experience because that is the very job itself. Users are not stupid. The thing is, your product is not easy enough. So again, there are certain biases. The thing is, we all have to just remove those biases. And I do agree with the fact that we are humans and we just simply cannot remove certain biases. It will be there always. But the thing is, you just have to give your best to go with facts and logics, not with your emotions. No, the thing is, all this workshop will be completely useless if you do not invest. Uh, Recently, I had a meeting with another engineer where I recommended that person that you have to invest in yourself also because it is important. So let's say investment is soft skills, which is very important, to be honest. As you age, I'm telling you, as you age, your soft skills will matter more than your technical skills. In fact, recently I was seeing a post on Glassdoor, by the way. There was a 50-year-old developer who was recently laid off, and he was saying that whether he would be hired ever again. By the way, it has been about 4 months, I guess, and he has not been hired. The reason was he was just a developer, nothing else. For let's say, assuming he was working as a developer for 30 years, he was just a developer. So the soft skills were just not there. The consultancy part was not there. The management was not there. So yeah, you have to evolve. And again, logic over emotions. In consultancy, obviously, I'm not saying to just throw out emotions from your life, just in the consultancy part. Okay, so hold on to your opinions as loosely as possible and be willing to take the constructive criticism. As I said, your opinions do matter, but your opinions should be factual, right? So if you are recommending something, you cannot just go with the vibes, the fancy products, or whatever. You, you just have to hold your opinions as loosely as possible because that is the way to go. And again, there was a report by I think McKinsey or I think it was from McKinsey. I'm not sure. I have also added in references that they recommend that one should at least invest 15 minutes of their daily life for new info of tech of whatever. If you are a person who likes to cook, just go into cooking info. If you're a person into tech, just go into tech information. I personally use daily.dev websites, and I have tuned it my way, and it just gives me a very small snippets of information that I want. So 10 minutes is also enough for me, but I daily invest that uh, for myself. So that is an investment that you need, that you owe that to yourself. Okay, the big tech and the billion-dollar consultancy firms, I don't know if you consider them evil or not, whatever, but they are important. The long reports from them, the boring reports, which we consider boring reports, the long factual reports, they are very important. I personally used to think that they are not important. I did not read those, but as I started reading those, I came to know that in fact they are quite helpful. By the way, especially if you command to transition from a developer to a consultant. So yeah, do read those long, boring reports from the big billion-dollar companies. Yeah. So now the question part. So please go ahead. You can, by the way, type your questions also. Okay, nothing from anyone. So um, you can, by the way, ask me questions later also through my LinkedIn or directly to Antimatter's Discord, whatever. The references or whatever I have said are here. You can scan it or you can see it on the link also. This will be shared with you later on also. And again, you can just ask me questions later on. So I guess that's about it. We can conclude this. Thank you.